call you.
Alderman Conway. Alderwoman Flowers.
Here.
Alderman Ortman.
Present.
Alderman Williamson.
Here.
Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Moore.
Here.
Alderman French. Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Chairman Bosley.
President.
8 present, you have a quorum.
All right, we're gonna take up Board Bill 62, which is the Parking Commission's, budget. Where you going?
Oh, I'm trying to find out where Char is.
Jesus, you sound like a father just then. Where you going? Boy, it sound like I was getting in trouble the way you said that. But don't say it like that. I felt like I was getting in trouble, Alderman.
They run it, we just run around in it. Well, what we'll do, since he went out of here, Mr. Shower Jones is not here, well, of course, I'll sponsor it, because whatever is in the traffic, always comes there, and then parking comes to my committee anyway, for years. So they're the ones got all them answers, cause Sharon Tyler's got plenty of them for you. I don't have questions, I don't have the answers. Okay. Board Bill 65, is Kennedy here?
I saw him.
Well, wait a minute.
Was there earlier?
Sam, he's on the committee. Arnowitz, is he here?
Yep, yep.
He-
Okay, well, we'll do, take your bill, Board Bill 69 first.
This is the one you said we gonna vote no on, Frank?
That's the one.
Okay.
When he meant to sit down.
Boy, that
That's
go
right.
well, That's right, to all
Put 'em
of
down.
the martyrs.
The city alderman has directed me to vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here this morning on Board Bill 69, asking your favorable consideration of voting this bill out. It's a four-way stop in a residential neighborhood that the neighbors have all been wanting there. I went door to door and talked to all of them. I got a favorable 80% of registered voters there who all agreed that it should be erected. There's a lot of speeding with young kids going through there. So we thought this was the best way to regulate it. So I'm asking your favorable consideration on this committee, vote Board Bill 69 out.
So, we're gonna vote on it this time, but usually whenever you wanna put a stop sign up, I request a petition that's signed by a majority of people in each of the blocks that are gonna be affected by this. But because this is in your ward, and I know they don't know how to get in touch with me, you're the guy who's gonna have to answer this question. But hereafter, whenever you put up a stop sign, try and get a petition from the people who are affected by it or who live on both of those streets. Are there any questions? This is in your ward, right?
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions from anybody on Board Bill 69? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Call the roll.
Alderman Conway. Alderwoman Flowers.
Aye.
Alderman Ortman.
Aye.
Alderman Williamson.
Aye.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman French. Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Chairman Bosley.
Aye.
8 votes do pass.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board Bill 65. Alderman Kennedy, is he here?
No, Alderman Rowley is here. Alderman Rowley.
Okay, Alderman Rose, Board Bill 86.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the last time I was before your committee, it was concerning a parking district, and this is also a parking district. This is on the 4200 block of Gibson. And Gibson, at that location, is the block immediately north of Manchester. on Manchester, on the 4200 block of Manchester, we just had a new facility open up, which is an 850-person live music venue. That tells me that they're bringing kids in from the county and everywhere else to go there. They had 650 people there last week for a hip hop. I don't know what kind of concert it was, but it was like a rap concert or something. They had a bunch of 15 and 16, 17-year-old girls from the county coming in for it. So we're getting a lot of county money coming in. It's just that when they show up, they're flooding the residential neighborhood to the north. So we need to create a parking district for the area. The meeting I was at before, before I was here, was to create a parking district on the 400 block of Oakland, which is the block, the streets are angled, so that's the block immediately north of Manchester. And that was because the Urban Chestnut Brewery had opened up, and they're getting about 300 or 400 people a night at the Urban Chestnut Brewery. So as I said, I think last time, it's Yogi Berra's comment that nobody wants to go there anymore because it's too crowded. We're having that experience over in Park Southeast, and we need to at least take care of the folks that vote for me and send me down here. So that's the reason we're coming to these parking districts.
Are there any questions on Board Bill 86? On the first ward.
He's senior than me.
Alderman Rhodey, how do you designate your traffic administrators?
When you say traffic administrator, I'm sorry, I guess I should probably.
The person that's gonna administer this.
It helped to read the bill, I guess, huh? I'm sorry, where's it? It would probably be Parks, is it the one who's gonna handle the permits?
Right.
Okay, the people handling the permits for us is Park Central, which is used to be block grant funded Kudo that operates, Cubdo that operates in the area. They lost all their block grant funding, so, but we fund them. We have a collection of special taxing districts and community improvement districts, and then some institutional support. So that's why I feel comfortable making, it's not voluntary, we have ongoing sustained funding for them. And in this case, the revenue from the community improvement district along Manchester has been growing nicely because of all the additional activities that are occurring. And with each one that we set up, we usually set up that Park Central gets a percentage of whatever the special taxing district or the community improvement district's gross is. So the idea is that we try to create some sustainability for what we feel is a very important social infrastructure.
Okay, thanks. No further questions.
Are they all the ones from the first?
Do you foresee, because do you foresee that basically around that district that most of it will become special parking districts because of the success of Manchester?
Yeah, I envision, and actually I haven't, but I got it copied on the email yesterday. I've been following with great interest and enthusiasm the city treasurer's interest in beginning to rationalize the whole parking system throughout the city. And so I actually traded emails with Park Central staff saying, guys, we need to make sure that we know what's going on, and we need to engage the consultant that I don't know if it's been hired yet or it's been selected. I don't know if that's, I see the city treasurer with us today. I don't know if that's why she's here, but we certainly want to be a part of that process. I see parking being a problem from, I don't know how familiar you are with the geography of my neighborhood, but from south of Manchester
Right.
to north of, to Lindell probably. So I would see it creating parking problems all the way up into the 18th ward at some point.
But then, will you also have that parking problem south of it? So on the other side, south of
That's
Manchester
what I'm
also?
saying, south of Manchester, so.
Oh, from south of Manchester all the way over?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Right, so maybe from like Vanderman?
Almost
Right.
Vanderbilt, and we, the IKEA, as I think you're all aware, is open. We're having the official groundbreaking next week. They found some, I got an email, I have to tell you, Alderwoman. I got an email from, they advised everybody on Cortex's board that they found the remains over in the cemetery, and I responded to the executive director saying that his job was to get more 17th Ward voters, not fewer, and that we're gonna have to transfer the voter registration up to the 2nd Ward, so.
Only if it's Calvary, I don't have Bell Fountain.
Yeah, well, they're gonna transfer it up to Calvary.
Okay.
So, I'll send you the note, you can put them on your rolls up there, but, I'm sorry, I digress, I thought that was funny. I could see having a parking problem from Vanaventer all the way north. If you think about the geography,
Right,
there's
that
an
little-
exit on
right.
Vanaventer from 44. There is in essence there's one on Vanaventer from the west, and then it's not directly, but coming from the east, there's
I know
some
where it is,
closer.
comes down, right, come down, what is that, Blaine Creek, something? You
Yeah,
talking-
yeah,
right.
that's that one, but then
Right.
Highway 40
Yeah,
has
we-
pretty good access to Vanaventer as well.
Right.
You'll have IKEA there, and then the Commerce Bank site is gonna be in play, and then the Federal Mogul site's in play, so that whole stretch will probably become a retail stretch, and we're gonna be pushing very hard so that the retailing isn't seized of parking lots, which means that we're gonna be trying to encourage them to think about how to get people there other than just driving there, which will probably compound the parking problem, but I think from an economic development standpoint, it will actually be better for the city, so it's gonna be kind of some catch-22.
So why I was asking this is because I do know the area, since I used to live south for a lot of years and came that way, going to school and everything else, is that, do you foresee maybe having a parking district that's for the whole kind of neighborhood versus street by street?
Yeah, part of our problem is funding. We used to supplement Park Central's funding with block grant funding. Last year, as I think we're all aware, much of that got pulled. So we had a fairly big hole in our funding. And so we are at the point where we're having to go ahead, which is not a very fun thing to do, is go back and begin charging the residents of those streets for this service, and we're trying to moderate it as much, but we can no longer subsidize it. So there's a couple things, which is why we want to engage with the city treasurer, is would there be a way that we could do some revenue sharing on the parking tickets that are being issued, for folks who are violating that, so that we could at least cover the administration of the program, or, obviously we'd love to let them administer it, it's just that for right now, we're picking up that cost. The other thought would be and I don't think she's right here, I don't think I'm talking out of school, I've had these conversations with the treasurer before. There are other models in other parts of the country where if you have a really successful commercial district, you'll go ahead and they can do dynamic pricing. So like, instead of having it priced, you think of most meters as like 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening. Well, we have high times over there, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. So you might have really expensive meter parking during those periods. Our demand for public parking in the daytime is very low, so it might end up being very low. And if you're charging premiums, maybe there's some revenue sharing that the city treasurer could do with us if they're charging above the current meter rate, so that some of that could come back to the business district, and then the business district could use some of the cost of that to offset the cost of the parking program. So those are some of the things, those are the reasons we'd like to at least be at the table as she moves forward with that study. And I hope I'm not making you feel uncomfortable saying this in public, but we've had these conversations, and obviously I'm very sympathetic to the situation that she's been in office for a year, and there are some very complex issues that she's trying
But what
to
I'm
work her way
asking though,
through.
I think is that, so right now you're just gonna continue to do one street at a time as on a need basis. But I was just saying, at some point, it seems like, because every time you put another one in place, it encumbers another street more. So was there any plan that maybe this is an area we know it's gonna be a problem, and that we do it in one fell swoop instead of piecemeal, I guess?
The problem is
The
until the problem's there, we're gonna have trouble getting people being motivated
Okay.
to do this. What I have done is I've, how can I say this? Strongly encouraged the folks at Cortex to go ahead and begin doing a area-wide study that would consider both shuttles and parking. And there's a real interconnect there. Medical center or Cortex or anybody who's gonna go ahead and build in a fairly dense area, they're gonna have to spend about $25,000, $15,000 to $25,000 for structured, $40,000 for underground parking, and that's just your capital cost. You add in your operational cost of $50 to $75 a month. Suddenly it starts making a whole lot of sense. How can you motivate people not to drive to work but take other means of transportation? And some of the things that we're thinking about, and we've talked a little bit about this in HUDs, is how can we go ahead and connect people north and south of the central corridor to get there to take advantage of the jobs. And that's why I feel that we need to be making a more concerted effort on north and south mass transit than duplicating the existing east and west mass transit. And so I was just down at HUD trying to talk to them as we had our hearing the other day, and I'm very interested in seeing or making sure that there's a crack in the door, that if we can figure out our parking and potentially a shuttle solution for our area, would there be a way that we could at some later date incorporate block grant funding or something so that we can go ahead and begin running that shuttle further north and further south, and then that become the basis of become a development axis to build density around that, so that we can start taking the development from the central corridor, which I think in some ways I don't agree. I'm not in complete agreement with what you're saying, but I am certainly sympathetic to what you're saying, and I think there's some validity in your argument, and I think the best way that we can go ahead and defend some of the decisions that have been made in the past is to go ahead and expand that development that has occurred and the opportunities that are being created in the central corridor in the way of jobs, so that some of the residents both north and south of it can participate in that. And I think getting people from their neighborhoods to where the jobs are is probably central to that. But I don't want that to happen by getting kicked out of office because I can't find a place for my residents to park in front of their homes where they've done for the last 20 years.
Just to follow, oh, sorry.
You have to get permission from the alderman.
Can I be acknowledged?
Sure you will.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Alderman Rohde's point, my name's Jared Boyd. I'm in the Treasurer's Office for those who haven't had a chance to meet me. As Alderman Rohde stated, we did select a consultant to look at St. Louis's parking, both from a demand and regulatory standpoint. And we hope that there's some synergy there, particularly with the success that's going on in the Grove. We've been in discussions with Park Central to have our consultants do additional research in the Grove area and perhaps produce a parking demand study and recommendations that would allow both patrons and residents in that area to both enjoy the success of that area. Park Central has mentioned that Washington University Medical Center may be interested in underwriting the additional research for that demand study. So we are optimistic that our consultants can hopefully help alleviate some of the problems in the Grove and near the Grove, so that we can come up with a more holistic approach to the new success there.
No further questions.
Alderman from the fourth.
Across the street from my house is a church called Newstead Baptist Church. And Newstead Baptist Church is a very old establishment, and they're losing a lot of members. And so they have a lot of funerals. And they park all over the neighborhood, especially in front of my house. And I almost demand my parking spot, which I can't, but I'll set cones out, on one side of the street. I got no parking because they step on my flowers and do a lot of crazy stuff. Now, I'm Kojic, Church of God in Christ, and Newstead is a Baptist church. And RAP is associated with blacks, with minorities and black. I don't pick on the people at Newstead Baptist because they're Baptists and I'm Kojic. I just want to be able to park in front of my house. And I'm not being discriminated against them by any means because they're not of the same religion. So when I heard you say about it was a rap, this is associated with rap, and a bunch of children or kids were 17, 18-year-olds bouncing off the walls and bouncing off cars. Most of them, are they black that you see?
Well, that particular concert was a white rap artist, but just so everybody understands, I mean, one of the things that we are most proudest of, and part, frankly, of our branding and strategy for the Manchester Strip is the diversity. On Manchester, we have Soho, which is I think, very successful. They describe, Brandon, who runs that, describes it as a high-end soul food restaurant. And of course, across the street from that is Sweetie Pies. Robbie has been, just a wonderful asset to the community.
Right.
She's gotten us international
I
exposure.
got 2 pounds here from them.
And she has been very successful. We have, I think, cooperated in every way that we can. There's a parking lot that's kind of halfway down the street and across the street that is actually city-owned, and we have the city treasurer administer. Currently, we are not charging anything for that lot. And that is the primary place where it works out pretty good because that is the primary parking spot for Sweetie Pies during the daytime. And there is another live venue that's next door to that, which is called the Gramophone, and that tends to be more of an evening venue. And Soho is next to the Gramophone, and that tends to be more of an evening venue. So the parking lot that provides parking for Sweetie Pies during the daytime is the same parking lot that provides parking for Soho and Gramophone in the evening. And as far as diversity goes, I think everybody's well aware that is probably the strongest and most active gay and lesbian bar district in this city. So now we have Lebanese. We have a Lebanese restaurant. We have a they call it Everest, but it's Indian and Korean. We have an Afghani restaurant. We have an Irish pub, and just so many of them I can't keep track of them anymore. Yeah.
What does Soho stand for?
In New York, it's
New
named
York.
first, south of Halston. I don't know what it stands for.
It's a New York term that we just incorporated.
Soul food restaurant.
Right.
Actually, I think it's also London has a Soho.
Yes,
too,
exactly. That's where it originally came from.
All right, that's all I have.
Yeah, I don't know if you can answer this, Joe, but if I'm over, in that district and I'm visiting a brewer or something, and I park in the 4200 block of Gibson in front of Sam Moore's house, he comes home. Now, will he have I guess he'll have a hang tag or some kind of sticker of some sort. Now, what would happen to me? Could I be ticketed and towed? Or what's the repercussion of somebody that doesn't live on that block?
I think it's a ticket is I think the initial thing. Now, I guess if you got a whole bunch of unpaid tickets, they might tow you, but.
If I'm just parked in front of his house and
you've paid you don't have a lot of outstanding, they can probably just ticket you. And the cost for the program is obviously, we had struggled with this for years, and before we had Park Central, which, as I explained, has somewhat of an institutional funding behind it. We thought about trying to do this before, but, you could get a good volunteer to do that for a while, but then the volunteer moves out, or they have a child, or they switch shifts, and then all of a sudden it's just a train wreck. So what Park Central is, there's the cost of the program is the cost of the tags, and I think tags are like $2 a piece, and then there's the administrative cost, and so they're trying to keep it reasonable. I think they're charging $10 a tag, which is not real popular right now. I'm getting a lot of calls because that's a new charge for folks. But if you think that if you had 2 cars in your family and you want to buy a guest pass, that's $30 a year. For $30 a year, won't guarantee you a spot in front of your house. Most of our streets are, we're overparked anyway. But at least you know, at least it will keep the daytime commuters away from it in the West End portion, and then in the, you know, along the strip on Manchester, it's mostly nighttime driven, so, but we anticipate having problems, you know, you know, in that whole area that the Alderwoman from the first had mentioned, probably, you know, from some area south of Manchester, perhaps all the way down to Vanderbilt, or all the way up north to Lindell, and I could see at some point, you know, Terry having parking problems in the 18th ward.
That's all I had, thank you.
Alderman from the ninth. I have a couple questions for you there, Joe. Who pays for these permits that they are going to be hanging on their car?
The residents on the block have to pay for them.
Oh, who gets the money?
Park Central, that's a fee that Park Central charges to administer the program.
Park Central is not a city agency then?
It's a non-for-profit, that's correct. And it's,
Well, who will give these tickets out?
the parking tickets, so if you violate the parking district, then I believe it's either the police or the city treasurer. The police are the parking enforcement in the city treasurer's
Well,
office.
Parking enforcement goes and gives a ticket out. We're the ones, the city that does the work, but somebody else gets the money.
Oh,
That
I
doesn't
think
seem
that
quite right. If the city's gonna put a parking ticket on somebody's car, then the city should get the money, but if somebody else gets the money, then whoever that person, that entity is, should pay the city for their person who patrols that area.
Alderman, the cost of the permit is, you know, I mean, first, the residents of the area are paying that, and we're, $10 a year for that service is a nominal cost, and I
Yeah,
don't.
but who do they pay?
The Park Central, the non-for-profit, Park Central doesn't make money on that, it's a money loser for them.
I understand.
But the revenue from the parking ticket, my sense is that could be a profit center for the city, you know, if it's strictly enforced. And those are discussions we need to have, but as, we're filing, I don't know if it's state statute or other city ordinance, but there's an ordinance that requires that there's a parking district administrator that's, that is there to hand out and regulate the whole thing, and that's Park Central is that entity.
Yeah, but if Park Central, who's not under the city, gets the money, and we have city employees out there writing the tickets for somebody else, that just seems like the city now is working for somebody else, because I don't think city.
Alderman, if the city would want to go ahead and administer this program, we would be glad
Everybody.
to turn this over to the city to administer for $10 a resident. I mean, we view this whole thing as a pain in the ass, frankly, and a money loser. But it's an important service for us, so, and it's important for the residents. But if the city wants to go ahead and do that for $10 a thing, I'm pretty sure we would be glad to offload that. It's just that it would be, I mean, administratively, it's very challenging. We have to send letters out every year to everybody. And I think what I had mentioned earlier is if the, if we're creating the parking districts and tickets are being out, I think that could be a revenue source for the city, just on the ticket side of things. And I'm saying that without having any of the numbers to back that up, but those are some of the discussions that we would like to have with the city treasurer's office and their consultants as they move forward, so that we can kind of begin rationalizing it as the alderwoman from the 20th said. Can we make it for the whole area, and what should we be charging for it, and how can we make it work for both the businesses and the residents and the city?
But what people do privately, that's their business. But if it's going to be a police officer or one of the meter maids issuing that ticket, they cannot work free for somebody else. That ticket has to go, the money from that ticket has to come back to the city. The city policeman cannot write a ticket to pay me or somebody else for violating something. That money has to go to the city.
And
I say
today,
something?
today, the money does go to the ticket revenue does go to the city.
Oh, okay, that's the reason I asked. And who is writing these tickets?
I believe the police department or the parking enforcement.
Either one.
That's what I was asking, 'cause I thought you was having somebody, other entity, writing the tickets, and we then would also maintain the parking signs or whatever else that indicates that who is allowed to park here and who not.
We would like to have a discussion at some point in the future with the parking division, that if this in essence becomes a moneymaker for them, could they help us offset some of our costs of administering this? But we aren't there yet, and they, we would like to have that discussion at some later date perhaps. But
Well, I don't see this as a money maker. What I see this as the ability to be able to provide parking for the people that live over there. But when Joe Smith or Susie Q comes and parks over there, then she's gonna end up having to pay. Now, the problem is, who writes the ticket and who gets the money?
yeah, and right now, the city writes the ticket and the city gets the money.
Well, that solves my problem.
Okay.
Alderman from the night.
I'm good.
Did you have a question?
No, it was answered.
I saw somebody's hands flying.
No, it was answered. I was just like,
Okay, if there are no other questions on Board Bill 86, let me see. Oh, I did ask one other question. The city is the one that's gonna monitor whether or not the people parked there are supposed to be there. So who will monitor that?
Well, the who gets there, and I haven't, abstractly, I can tell you what happens is that once a year, a letter goes out to the residents saying that you're living inside of a parking district. If you want to avoid being ticketed, you need to come by and buy your parking pass. It used to be come by and pick up and sign up. And so then at that point, you show up with your driver's license or proof of residence, and you present that, and they provide, they confirm that you live there, and then they give you, your parking pass, which you would then hang in off the mirror in your car. And the city has posted signs for us, so they'll post that this is a parking restricted area. And then as far as the enforcement, usually the residents are pretty on top of that, and they will be calling in if there's violators. And so they will either call Park Central up, or else they'll call the police department up and start trying to identify violators. And so usually it works pretty well. There's some people that cheat and hand out their guest passes to their friends who work at the medical center or whatever, and they're parking there, inappropriately. But they get a nasty letter saying that, if you're abusing the thing, we're going to scrap you from the program, and usually that cleans up the problem real quickly.
Okay, did the city councilor ever look at this? Because what it looks like, the city is working for a private entity here. And because anything that the city is involved in and whatever money goes as a result of what the tickets the city does, it's almost like the city will come out and give you a ticket for having trash in your alley or on your lot. You follow me? And somebody else gets the money, and that's what this looks like.
Well, all the money from the tickets are going to the city right now. And yes, we had Park Central from time to time needs an attorney, so we have an attorney on retainer over there who's a former city councilor. And the first one of these that we set up was a number of years ago. At the time, it was Larry Williams was treasurer, and Bill Keeling was the attorney on their side. So the two of them developed the process that we're currently using today.
Okay, the last question is the permits that they're gonna use to hang on their mirror to let people know that they belong there. Who pays for that?
That historically, that was Park Central was paying for that. Much of Park Central was being subsidized with block grant money before.
Oh, okay.
Now, block grant money has been cut, so they got a big hole in their budget. And now what we're doing is we're charging the actual residents $10 per permit per year.
Okay. I have no other questions. If no one else has a question, I'll entertain a motion to pass
So moved.
Bill 86 out.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Previous vote? Oh, do we have?
We have
Previous vote?
We have a previous vote.
Okay. All right.
Second.
Board Bill 86 is out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
And
members of the
Board
committee.
Bill 65, Alderman Kennedy.
So we haven't voted yet? No yet, Frank. I thought you said we were gonna vote no on something. Is this the one?
No, this is the one.
This one in we got Sam.
I do have my own rendition here of a map
All right.
to help the committee.
Yep, pass it around.
If it's good enough, I'll go into the profession. There you go. Board Bill 65 would name a new street that is being created as a part of the North Sarah development in honor of Margaret Bush Wilson. The development, as you know, is along North Sarah, which is between Westville and on the eastern end of it, along Vanderventer, there's been the Phase 2 development. Right behind those new mixed-use apartments and commercial, there's going to be a park and 2 new streets to create the park. The eastern street, we would like to name it after Margaret Bush Wilson. You know, Margaret Bush Wilson was a longtime civil rights, both activist and attorney in the city of St. Louis. She was once the national chair of the NAACP. She was involved in creating the legislation that created LRA, as well as dealing in litigation related to restricted covenants. Was that Kramer versus Kelly?
Shelley v. Kramer.
Shelley versus Kramer. She was one of the attorneys involved in that. So she has made a great contribution to the city of St. Louis and the nation. She was a resident of the Vanderventer neighborhood in which the plan was implemented, and she also attended the meetings, and the vision for that community she helped create. So we thought it would be appropriate now that there will be a new street to name one of those after Margaret Bush Wilson, and that would be the eastern one. There will be a western street, new street as well. They're just a block long that we later will be bringing another name forward to be named. But the western new street has not been created yet. And that is what Board Bill 65 would do, and we ask for your favorable support.
Who will pay for that? Because see, there's a big hill there. Up there between Finney and CD Banks over there. There's land. What are they gonna do? Put the street through there?
No, so it's a north and south street.
Right.
So it's going to be on the right, so from Vanderventer, it would be just right behind the new development. It's north and
West.
south.
Yes,
So it's
west.
really before you get up to the hill.
Oh, okay. Are there any questions on Board Bill 65?
We have a larger rendition here. Where is it at? Vanderventer.
So this was the phase 1,
You
and
need
this
to-
is the proposed new street.
You need to identify who you are.
Oh, I'm
Let the
sorry.
chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Adam Wall with McCormick Parent Salazar. We're the developer for the community. So this was the phase 1 of the community. This is portion of phase 2. This is a portion of phase 2 with Vanderventer here. Right here is the new street that's already built that we're proposing the new name for.
Right here. This looks a lot prettier than my drawing, but.
That's okay. Well, Board Bill 65, are there any questions?
That one right here.
If not, I'll entertain.
Alderman Moore.
Sam, you got a question? Alderman from the 4th.
Yes, sir. The Kramer versus Kelly in my ward, the 4600 block of Lavity, we had planned at one time before one of my colleagues decided that we should pay $320 for the naming of a temporary street, Margaret Bush Wilson. We was trying to get Lavity, whoever Lavity is, somebody can tell me who that is later. We was trying to get Margaret Bush Wilson because that house sits on Lavity in the 4600 block. There's a plaque already sitting there, and we were talking about doing that temporarily, so we can't have a temporary and a permanent. Market Shore. And I was trying to get a permanent Labadee to be named permanently after Margaret Bush Wilson, but some of the aldermen didn't see fit that she was worthy of that street. And again, whoever Labadee is, but I'm gonna vote for it. I appreciate it, but, you know, I think that it should be in the 4th Ward or anything to get it moving. You know, we couldn't find the $320 to pay for the temporary designation of that street, but, and also there is the house of Marvin Bush Wilson is now in my ward, which used to be in your ward.
Used to be in our ward.
At the, where they cut across the lot and then go down the alley. That house there, that 4-family flat belongs to Margaret Bush Wilson's family.
4200 block of.
Exactly right, 4200 even, that's what I cut across with. But I want, create civil disobedience. I'll go for it.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I might suggest to you that Margaret's father was very involved in that, and that might be a
Good.
compromise, because that's where she got that. And in fact, I don't know if Margaret was the one that did Shelley V. Kramer or if it was her father. So you might still have the original person, I think. I have the case law for
We
you.
can
if
talk
you
about
need.
it, I'm just
All
trying
right.
to get that $320.
That's what they have ordinances for.
I know,
Are there any other questions on Board Bill 65? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
so move.
Second.
Previous roll.
Yeah.
Request for a previous roll, Board Bill 65 is out. Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you.
All right, Board Bill 67, Alderman Moore.
Yes, sir, I want to switch seats if you don't mind. The 4300 block of Cobrian at Newstead, 1800 block, we want to put a 4-way stop sign there. It's already a 2-way. And the reason why I didn't get a petition was because there are no houses on Newstead, but there are a lot of accidents when people are coming out of, Cobrian is a 1-way headed west. And we need to get a stop sign there, and it also will kind of impede the traffic a little bit. When they leave Martin Luther King, they strike out doing about 50 miles an hour until they get to North Market, and then they stop. So we want to kind of slow that down, because the people that's trying to cross Newstead, heading west on Cobrian, in the old area where you live, near the Bosley record store, they don't get across Newstead as fast. And we have a lot of turnarounds. There are people getting banged up, and I know how they feel getting banged up in an accident. So we ask for your favorable consideration of that, to get that stop sign there to slow them down just a wee bit.
Are there any questions on Board Bill 67? That's all in your ward, right, Alderman Moore? It is in your ward.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? I only have one question. The people that live on those two streets, are they familiar with what it is you're getting ready to do?
Yeah, very familiar.
All
Just
right.
one block that, because on Newstead, the 1700 block, 1800 block, there's no resident.
No residents.
And then the ones that's not affected in the 4400 block, it's a 1-way headed west. So only the 4300 block of Cobrian, 1-way headed west, I talked to all of them.
Okay.
Those are mine.
I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 67.
Second.
Previous roll.
Request for the previous roll. Board Bill 67 is out.
Well, I guess it's Frank's thing.
Alderman
This is the one we're gonna vote no
Williamson.
on then. You didn't come up with, you didn't come up with no
I
votes.
should have been
Is
before
it-
more, but that's all right. But I'd like to yield to the treasurer, she's here. So if you don't mind, you can go ahead and take her bill. I'm on the committee.
Oh, so we
I'm
can
not
vote no
going
on
anymore.
hers. We were just getting ready to take care of you, Frank. Yeah, we're gonna vote.
I'm coming next. I know you gonna pick me up.
All right, this is the treasurer's bill, operating bill for the following year. And she will tell you what it is. If you've got any questions about it, she can answer it. If she can't, I will.
Good afternoon, and Chairman Bosley and members of the committee. I'm Treasurer Tashara Jones, and here today to submit my bill for our annual budget for fiscal year 2015. total sum of $14,738,900. As the board bill in front of you details each garage and the parking division of each, on the parking division for each, for our revenue, it's broken out. Some highlights for this particular year. Compared to last year, it's only a $365,000 increase. We've done some staff realignment compared to last year. All employees, all part-time employees, come next fiscal year, will receive a raise to $10.10 per our president's urging for us to pay a fair wage and a living wage for part-time workers. Our parking enforcement officers, we're going to expect more out of them as we go forward with the parking technology increase. So we also think that they should be paid fairly as well. So their salaries will be increasing from anywhere to $13 to $15 per hour. We'll have 14 new full-time positions. That's a net effect of $574,000 across the garages. We're moving 12 part-time people to full-time, which will also allow them to get benefits and help take care of their families. There are 2 new positions, a director of information technology and a staff accountant. And we will be saving $291,000 plus FICA for a total of $313,000 from reduction in staff per performance people, simply moving them to full-time. And the net savings from the 2014 to 15 budget was overall it's $43,000. We also have sparse in between the departments and overall merit increase of $200,000. This is the first year we did performance evaluations, so people have been evaluated and will receive merit increases based on those performance evaluations. For parking administration, so there's some expenses that we added this year. There's a interest expense associated with the new meter equipment, reflected at $72,000 for the fiscal year 2015. The engineering study to analyze repair and replacement for our garages at $25,000. As you are aware, we're doing a parking study. The vendor has been notified as Desmond. That'll cost us about $50,000. The rent commission expense for Shoto building is not reflected in the budget. And we also established security cameras in the couple's garage, which will reduce staff, or we had to hire an outside contractor for security to make sure that the cars and people were secure there at couples, because there's a lot of residential parking downtown there. Also, the RFP, which we will be wrapping up the pilot project at the end of next month, will result in the installation of new meter equipment to accommodate the upgrade in technology. We project that that'll be about $5 million investment to be financed over 15 years at approximately 3.2%. For fiscal year 2015, again, the $72,000 interest plus an 8-month reserve of $268,000 for a worst-case scenario is reflected in this budget. And the timing hasn't associated with retiring equipment hasn't been fully depreciated, so we have to consider that to minimize or eliminate a loss on our books. And we'll also be upgrading the equipment at the garages, the revenue equipment at the garages, so we can take credit cards, and we looked at that cost at about $320,000 currently, and we have some vehicle replacement that needs to happen at about $60,000. So those are the highlights. I'll entertain any questions you have.
Are there any questions, Alderman from the 22nd?
The Alderman from the second.
From the second? No questions.
Yeah, okay, am I next? Okay.
Well, you always have some questions.
Absolutely. I'm always
Ain't nothing wrong
in
with
a
that.
learning mode. Okay. Can you just explain to me the contractual services for each of the garage that has contractual services? Let's start with page 2 of 15.
Page 2.
The professional service line is $257,884. That is the paperwork.
On the exhibit 2 for, I'm sorry, contractual services under the.
5659.
Okay, 1 second.
Page 2.
Of 15.
Mm.
Professional service.
Are you talking about exhibit 2?
And our board bill is at the bottom here.
Professional.
Exhibit 1.
This is for.
And that's exhibit 1, I guess.
Yeah. So the, what that includes is, Regis, KPMG for our external audit, Comer Capital, which is our financial advisor, Reuben Brown, our audit, another audit, Brinks, Columbia Capital, no, that's not, that's a previous budget. Kwame Building Group for engineering, the parking rate study, our engineer for replacement and repair, and a maintenance fee. So overall, it's a reduction of 10% from last year's budget.
What's engineering? What kind of engineering services are you doing?
For the garages, our professional engineer, which used to be on staff, retired, so we use Kwame Construction's engineer.
To maintain integrity, you know, to make sure that the garages are stable and all that.
So as we do the bidding for the replacement and repair projects.
Gotcha. Okay. And this question comes up every year about the legal fees. It's a lot smaller this year than it has been in previous years. Is the treasurer's office still under litigation with some lawsuits without discussing them? And is that why we're $300,000 for legal fees?
Yes, so the largest lawsuit, which was in 2009 when the outsourcing first occurred, so that recently went to the Eastern District Court of Appeals, and they ruled in our favor on everything. And we're waiting to hear back if the attorney is going to seek remedy in a higher court, and the only place he can go is the Supreme Court. There is also a current litigation for employees who were let go, 4 employees that were let go after I took office, and we're continuing on that one as well. Those are the 2 major cases that are currently being litigated.
All right. In the Kill Garage, I'm on page 4. Those professional services are $56,000 plus.
Okay. That's for security, Hudson Security for our camera system. I'm sorry, no, Hudson Security is for the extra cops that we hire during the games, during the hockey games, the events at Scottrade.
Where is it in the budget that shows the collections, which was outsourced?
So that would be the outsourcing cost that was on page 2 that you started on. Is $57.90 outsourcing cost, that $2.7 million.
Gotcha.
Or is it 1.7 million? It's 1.7.
Let's see. New parking lot.
It just
Oh, it
went-
doesn't line
Yeah,
up?
it doesn't line up,
Okay.
yeah. That's the same amount as last year.
And how do you determine if you need more people or less people to reduce the cost of your contract or increase the contract as far as the collection personnel?
Are you talking about the collection? The collection personnel is currently outsourced.
Right.
So that falls totally on the contractor.
So you evaluate that every so often, right?
Yeah, we have weekly, well, bi-weekly meetings with the contractor, to determine, you know, her operating costs. And we anticipate with the upgrade of technology that she may be able to have a reduction in staff because, the meters are smarter. They basically tell you when there's a problem versus us kind of going out and relying on the public to either call in through the CSB or call our office or, so they're able to all be networked and tell us when there's a problem.
Is it this contract more or less than last year?
It's the same amount.
Okay. Is it the same amount over a certain year period?
No, we budgeted, even though we discontinued our contract with Duncan and Xerox, we both gave them termination notices as of October of last year so we can start the bidding process for new contractors. We anticipate that, this is the amount that we budgeted, so we anticipate staying within the budget for whoever is hired going forward.
I'm almost here. Okay, how much money will the treasurer's office be returning to the city's general revenue as far as the, I guess you could call it profit? There's a certain percentage by state statute.
40%.
40%. And
Right.
what is that in dollars?
We're not sure yet because our fiscal year hasn't closed. It closes on June 30th. However, we anticipate it will be no less than $500,000.
Is there any chance that the city could receive more than 500,000?
It really depends on how we look at year end after all of our expenses are paid. And if our revenue definitely increases, which we think it will, we could be in a position to give more.
Because you can give 50 or 60% if you want to, right?
No,
You can't.
statute says it's no more than 40%.
Okay.
However, if we make more money, then we can give more money.
Gotcha. Okay, because I sat on Ways and Means for 9 years, and oftentimes it's really good and helpful when you're comparing, you know, numbers from last year and the previous year to this year. So can you send a budget that lists, you know, a side-by-side of all the costs from last year to the current year, rather, to the proposed
Sure.
fiscal year?
Sure.
And that will also list all your staff positions and showing the percentage of this, you know, the FTEs, if they're 100%, 50%.
So the FTE is still under development because like I said, we are in the process of changing several part-time people to full-time.
Right.
So as soon as that is available, we'll send it to you, but the budget is definitely available, right, Michelle?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Michelle Smart is our acting CFO.
Okay. But your budget is based on a projection amount of so many full-time, right?
Yes.
So
she-
you already kind of know what positions will be full-time.
Yes.
But why wouldn't that information be available now? Because you're
Well-
budgeting for it.
I'll ask Michelle to see what she can put together and send it to you.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Alderwoman from the first.
Thank you. First, I want to make a comment about the legal services, because I've been around long enough to remember. Part of the problems we have with legal services is that because the city councilor does not understand who they're supposed to work for, which is the city, not the mayor, okay? And so I was around long enough to remember when the comptroller had to get legal rights to be able to have his own lawyer because the city councilor was so busy trying to defend the mayor's position versus the city's position, okay? And it's going all the way up to the Supreme Court. It's not just in our city, it's all the way up to federal. Under Bill Clinton, the Supreme Court told him that the lawyers that work for the United States government do not work for the president. They work for they don't work for the executive branch, they work for the United States. So the reason why different departments have to have lawyers is because our city councilors don't do what they're supposed to do, which is defend the city. They get entrenched in defending the mayor's position. So I don't blame each department until we have a city councilor that does what they're supposed to do. And then I would have my own legal staff, and I would encourage each and every department to do that until we can do a better job with that. So that's why that happens, okay? Because if the mayor takes a position and somebody else has another position, if the city councilor automatically goes to the mayor's position without looking at the law, you got a problem if you don't have your own set of lawyers, okay? So that's what happens with that. I have a question about tenant improvements. I just wanted to know what happens. I saw on several items on Exhibit 2, and I think again on another exhibit about tenant improvements. So is that you're a tenant someplace and you're doing improvements, or is someone renting space from the city and doing improvements?
So it depends on which garage.
Okay.
There are some garages where we have tenants on the ground floor, like Justice Center, like
Okay.
Sefton Pine.
Okay.
Keel, for example, we are the major tenant because we have some offices over there, so tenant improvements could be.
Either way.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. My question was about your contracts, professional service. Do they run year to year, or some of them 5 years, or are they different lengths of time?
They're different lengths.
Okay.
We did an extensive contract review over the last year and have discontinued several of them based on, some of them just weren't working out for us. For example, we had one that was for auto repair services, but the guy we had to go buy parts and bring them to him, and he did it in his garage, and he didn't even have like a lift, and it was one of those holdovers from the previous administration, so we discontinued that.
Okay.
And now we car service at reputable, Don Brown.
Cleanup is really hard. When you first come back into someplace, I'm finding that after been 12 years someplace, and then coming back to the same ward, it's really difficult to become behind somebody else. So I do understand that. And it doesn't happen all at one time. You
No,
have to
ma'am.
just do it a little at a time, and hopefully you'll get there, and people will be patient to know that everything doesn't change in one day. The alderman from the 22nd asked about the statute, which says that you give no more than 40%. If you wished, because the statute says no more than 40%, you could give less than 40%. Is that the way it's written?
Yes, it says
But
no
you,
more.
right, but you're trying to give the maximum that you could give.
Yes.
Thank you. What other question I had? Exhibit 5, which is on page 8 of 15. And it's Fund Department 5790, and it says new parking lot, and then it says special, and it's just $1,000. What's a new parking lot special? What is that? I'll give you more than 1 second.
I want to say that fund is for kind of incidentals that may come up from time to time. This particular lot is across from Scott Trade, so it doesn't require a lot of maintenance, doesn't
Right.
require a lot
So
of
it's just
staff.
an- okay.
But should something come up,
You got money budgeted
yes,
for it.
yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
The Alderman from the 26th.
God, you got any questions? I guess you? Okay, I guess I am. Yeah, just a few. When it comes to the, your meters, and I guess the company that you're contracting out to, do you really see like and I'm sure you do, but I'm not, that's why I'm asking you, the cost effective of contracting that particular part out? I know they have before you came on as treasurer. I know you have the cost of the maintenance of keeping up the meters and what have you. And, we've been reading about some of the events like that takes place downtown and, everybody's paying for parking now, which
Right.
they should, help the revenue. Do you see, opposed to a large jump in revenue gain by doing that, opposed to paying employees the benefits they used to go out and do the collection of the meters? So in other words, does that particular company that's contracting out from the treasurer's office, do they give you a report on the jump in revenue, how much money they're taking in that goes into the coffer, and exactly what they're paying their employees and the cost savings?
So overall, the information we were given for the original outsourcing and how much that saved the treasurer's office was about $2 million a year. And due to some recent changes we made, when we discontinued Duncan's contract as of February of this year, we've been able to save the office over $40,000 a month in contracting services just for meter maintenance, collections, moving and towing.
Exactly what was Duncan doing with the contract, was they repairing, because you got to repair the meter, or the company repairs the outsourcing, has the maintenance.
Right,
department on there.
so
what did
Duncan is actually the manufacturer of
Right.
the coin meters that you see on the streets.
Right.
And they had a local subcontractor that was responsible for the maintenance and collection. So that subcontractor dealt directly with Duncan on a day-to-day basis if they needed, more parts or more instruction on the maintenance end. So we were paying Duncan basically for reporting, and we really weren't satisfied with their reporting, so,
You were really doing the repair of the meters,
and the local subcontractor was,
yeah.
and most of the, and that person took most of the employees that were currently in the treasurer's office, or a good portion of those are currently working for this subcontractor.
kind of a waste, but it's corrected that. But that's all I had. Thank you.
I have one other thing.
Okay, well, let me get, the Alderwoman from the second. No questions, okay. Okay, did anybody else, did you have a chance?
No, sir.
And you have no questions?
I didn't have a chance, but I have no questions.
You just gave me a chance.
Well, I know, but I said, did I have you asked me if I had a
Had
chance
any
to ask
questions.
questions.
But you're all right.
Not before you ask
As
me.
long as you're
I'm fine.
okay, that's
No
what's
questions.
important.
You didn't stand a
Okay.
chance, huh?
Right.
Say,
just
I
have
had
a
a chance, I
request.
didn't take it.
That's right.
It's something
I'm done.
that has been needed for a long time. It kind of goes back to Alderman Joe Rody's conversation about the parking districts. I know I personally have a couple of parking districts in my ward, and you do have to depend on the tenant. The residents, they ask for them, they need it, everybody parks. I have one at St. Louis Avenue in the 5900, 5800 block, right across from Barry Brothers Park. And so when they play football, people go to the grocery store, couldn't have a parking spot. When they came back, they parked all over the street, not only in front of their house, but illegally on St. Louis Avenue on the north side of the street. So we have one there. Then we did one in the 1600 block of Belt. They asked me for it, I gave it to them, but nobody wants to be responsible. And I really think the city should just look at a comprehensive approach of all of them across the whole city. I know Ortman has some throughout the city as a whole. I think the city should just take it on. And in saying that, it's really the function of the parking division to take on. Since you're doing the study that Jared talked about, can you kind of analyze, all the little small residential parking districts across the city and see how much it would really cost the treasurer's office or the parking division to maintain that?
Sure.
I mean,
I believe that is that part of the study?
They are
Mr.
looking at
Boyd?
all of the zones.
Yes.
All of the
Okay.
permit zones.
Yeah, all
both
of the, so business and residential.
Okay, good.
And also with the software upgrade and the technology upgrade, we believe that, we'll have something better to offer residents, should a recommendation come back from the consultant that this is something the office could take on. As we have better software and better equipment, it could possibly be a win-win.
Right.
Yeah.
The challenge is a lot of them are seniors. And they're not savvy. They don't want to create the placards, and they don't want people coming to their house wearing them about they lost it and all this kind of stuff. And they deserve a right to be able to park. And of course, you know, we have Friendly Temple in my area, and those folks leave on Bellevue. They won't be able to park in front of their house until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock.
A lot of the new technology runs by license plate, and as long as people register, so if you would say, for example, this new zone on Gibson,
Right.
and if the treasurer's office were doing it, they could register their license plate probably on a website, and that way, when our enforcement officers or the police went to ticket, as they pulled that information up in their handheld to try and write the ticket, it would stop them because this is a resident. So it would also decrease the number of errors that happen when we write tickets as well. So we're definitely looking at that.
That would be incredible. You'll be a hero to me if we can get that going on.
We're just
Or a
trying to work
shero.
smarter than Shiro.
Frank,
Yeah.
Alderman from
And I'm glad
26
he
has
brought,
a question.
he brought up, it's a good point, because you know, I have like the Twilight Tuesday in my ward, kind of, it's gonna be loud, and it's a mess. So, and that's a great idea, going by the license plates, because some residents complain that don't have a sticker, don't have a hanger, that should have one, still receive a ticket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, we can log those license plates in, even if you got a sticker or not, we know you are a resident of that area, so you won't get a ticket, so that's good. What was my second question about that was, oh yeah, the duties of the park enforcement officers. Have they changed? Do you guys work longer hours in certain districts, or what's kind of going on with that now? Because I've noticed it has been some slight change with their hours and, you know, some of the patrol.
So
And I don't know if you can go through it all. but
I'm not
just-
really at liberty to
That's
speak
okay,
about that,
but
cause I know that they work, from, 7 AM to 10 PM, but we have two or three different shifts.
Sure, okay.
And some work on weekends, so they, so
Right.
some are there on, well, not Sundays, but some are on Saturdays. But there are less people there on Saturdays than there are Monday through Friday.
Okay, so.
And we're taking a look at them as well, and thinking of adding them some more duties and have them being more like ambassadors, than always being the, you know, the ticket writer and the, you know, but we're looking at right, you know,
Enforcers,
give
not-
directions as well. When I went to the International Parking Institute meeting, just a few weeks ago, we find that this is a trend nationwide, that parking enforcement officers are not just out there to give tickets, they're also there to help and assist people in other ways.
After they give them the ticket.
Give a ticket with a smile.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to
moved.
pass out
Second.
62 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
Request for the previous roll. 62 is out.
And you out there every day in the night and the evening.
Thank you.
And people get so mean, they talk to them. They write me a ticket, I tell them, oh, that's all right, 'cause I know I'm gonna
No, sir.
deal with it. You ain't
Yeah,
gotta yell
Board
at
Bill
them.
68.
Thank you, Alderman Williamson, for giving me your spot. My alderman now.
Well, okay, it's like a dog, okay.
Glad
Okay, if
to.
it's a dog,
More than
and you
happy
don't
to.
kick that dog a lot, and then somebody nice come along, that dog just knows. Oh, we,
Vote no.
okay, this is the one, cause Frank told us, okay.
one.
Okay,
This the one.
this the one we're gonna vote no on. The majority is opposed to this. I think you better put this on the,
That's okay, I have a petition here, and I
Inform.
will give them your telephone numbers.
okay.
This is Board Bill 68. This is the 5300 block of Ridge. And we do have a petition, Mr. Chairman. These people are requesting that Ridge be blocked off at Arlington and Ridge in the 5300 block. A lot of drug activity that have been taking place over there and speeding up and down the street, which this states in the petition. I apologize that I don't have a map. And I'm not really a fan of blocking off streets, but they were very adamant about this street being blocked off because some of the drug activity that takes place, they've called the police, is what they tell me. And, you know, when they see suspicious activity taking place, illegal activity, the police respond, but they kind of complain about the police. It takes them a while to get there. So in a lot of cases, when the police do show up, the activity is, you know, pretty much over with. So what they're saying is if we at least block it off, maybe we can kind of delay them from leaving so fast or exiting out the other way or what have you. Or at
Take
least,
their business elsewhere.
right, and minimize the traffic that goes up and down Red. So that's what I'm requesting, because the residents in the 5300 block are requesting that it be blocked off at Arlington and Ridge. Now, there are 2 large vacant lots, and I wish I had a map on the western part of that block. So it will be almost the fourth of the block will be blocked off, because the west end of the block is like really 2 large vacant lots. So it would take too many pots to cover around the vacant lot in the street. So what they're gonna do, they're gonna bring it all the way up to the 2 houses from, on the north side, south side, and start the barricades right there.
Okay.
So I ask for your
Well, if they get
support.
across the vacant lot, they can't get down where the people are.
That's right. So if we block it off a little further, you won't be able to cross over, because the buildings are, you can block
Are
it.
there any questions on Board Bill 68?
I have a question of the chair.
Yes.
So when an alderman threatens the whole committee and say he gonna turn in your numbers, your private numbers and things like
Yeah.
that, I'm frightened to vote no now.
Well, you don't
I think
live
it's in the
on
best
that.
interest.
But he's
You
threatened the whole
don't live in
committee.
that 26 wards.
All right.
So what you have to do. he
I'ma
is
vote
the
yes.
guy- No, he is the guy that's responsible for what goes on in 26 ward. Anybody go here, tell them to call Frank.
I've already been accused from strong arming. Boy.
I have a question.
I know
Don't
you.
like this idea.
I know you don't.
Okay.
But Frank and I kind of talked about this. Ridge is a street that I personally use every day.
Yeah.
It's part of the neighborhood, the Hampton Heights neighborhood, which I represent 80%. I understand, the residents' concerns over there. I am not an advocate for blocking streets off. This is an unusual circumstance. I wish the police could do more to make constituents feel better. I don't think this is gonna be the solution. I'm familiar with that corner. I almost sometimes, 2 seconds stop and keep on going, because I know there's drama at that location on that corner.
Right.
I'm not convinced this is gonna help, and I'm gonna support this, but I hope we can talk about this again in 6 months.
Right.
With input from the police on calls for service and has it really gotten better? Because I view Ridge as one of those major arteries in the neighborhood to get us, to Union.
East to west, yeah.
And then anyway.
Well, I'd be more than happy to, we could sit down before 6 months, talk to the block and bring the police and some other neighbors involved. But, and in speaking with the chairman, in the past, I understand your point. If you on this block, or if you live on this block, I guess the ordinance states that if you get the petition signs. And in other words, what I'm trying to say is, a lot of people say, why are they blocking off this street? And they live in the 5200 block. Well, the 52 can't tell the 53 what to do, and the 53 can't tell the 52 what to do. And that's part of the problem that you have. So, I get a lot of that because, hey, we don't want that street blocked off. Well, if you don't live on it, what you can say about it. And I feel the same way that you feel, because the 5800 block of Cabinet, they tried to block it off, and I go home that way, and I don't want that street blocked off. You know what I'm saying? Because it's, it's a house. So, I understand your complaint on that, and I'm sure I'm gonna have some more repercussions from people, probably in the 51 and the 54 and all that. So, but 6 months, I'll be glad to revisit.
And the other thing is, the firehouse, engine 13, is at Sharman and Ridge. And if they
Right.
gotta get out to Union to get to a fire, now they're gonna haul tail down Ridge, and now they're gonna have to go,
Up to one of the
north or
wells,
south on
yeah.
Arlington. It's Arlington, right?
That's Arlington,
And
yeah.
swoop back around. Imagine if they need to get to the 5200 block of Ridge, or the 51, and now they can't make that straight shot right across. They gotta go north or south and come back around. And then when other people see the other problem, I always look at the ripple effect. So they get their street blocked off because of the drama. Then now the people over on Belt, they want theirs blocked off at Ridge and Belt, because people
well.
come down there at 100 miles an hour. And then the people on Belt, then you have the people on the next block, and then when we do, it's like water. So you can't go this way. If the traffic is gonna flow to somebody, I know Dion for 3 years, and they beat, I know how they could tell me about Dion, about want to block a street off of Elman a day. It's just a difficult process.
I love mine. It saved my neighborhood.
And you know what? And in your case, Alderwoman, it's on. You're blocking Kings Highway off, and it seems to work over there in the Central West.
But
End,
it wasn't like
about.
that when we started it, okay?
Right.
Vince Shamo and Steve Roberts tried and could not get it done, okay? And I had people coming down here lying on me, but it saved our neighborhood, seriously saved our neighborhood. Got the people not to move who were gonna move.
Yeah. But anyway, I just I'm gonna support Frank on it, but I want to have more conversation on it because it affects me too. Because then the constituent of 22nd Ward goes, well, I'm in the front 26, well, he did it, and why you gonna block ours off? And it's the same, and I live in that neighborhood,
I know.
So,
and I kind of dropped the ball on it, got tied up, got real busy doing a lot of things, and what I wanted to do, and I did it today, where it's like, well, it's a little late, Alderman, why are you calling me today? But I did go through the petition, I called those people, and I invited them down, and, it was on short notice, so I really dropped the ball on that. But like I said, we can go back in 6 months and revisit it. But I invited them down, and we can always have a meeting in the neighborhood about it.
Okay.
Go from there. So
that's all I have.
all right.
If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a
So
motion
moved.
for Board Bill
Second.
68.
Previous
Request for
rule.
the previous rule?
Previous rule.
Has there been a request?
Yes, you did. Previous rule.
All right.
She just made
Well,
it.
it's out.
Thank
Well,
you.
the last one here is my board. Yeah,
Oh, you got one more board bill?
Yeah.
When you finish, I have a question I'd like to propose to the entire committee
All
before.
right,
You want to go ahead and finish your last bill if you like.
Go ahead.
okay. I got Board Bill 68. No, that's Frank.
87.
Board Bill 87. Board Bill 87, that's in my ward. I don't know how many of you have ever passed that shopping mall that's coming. Some of
Salisbury.
it's already in there. We got the Dollar General store up there on Grand and Florissant and Grand and Carter.
Okay.
But the problem is, I have no houses, period, on Pleasant Street. And what has happened, there's an awful lot of parking and people hanging out on the street doing all kind of things there. So what we'd like to do is block Pleasant off there, so that when we do the shopping mall, which is gonna take place from Grand Avenue over to Carter and down to North Florissant, where they come together on Grove down there. And that's why we wanna block all of that off, to keep people from going up in there. They get in behind the Dollar General store and they do all kind of things up there. So that is why it's important that we now block Pleasant off. It's the beginning of the development of putting in that shopping mall that we want to put up there. So I would appreciate if you would support me on it. So I move that we. Yes.
I know you're the chairman.
Question.
I don't want to vote against you, but I just need some clarity.
Tell him how you will get a new vice chair if he votes no.
No, here's the question. Here's the question. You're talking about blocking the street off, but this talks about vacating the street.
Yeah, and we're gonna block it off first, and then we're gonna vacate that street. Here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna take that street completely out of there.
Okay.
The John Boyce is gonna pay to remove whatever sewage is there, and whatever water or gas lines are in there, because I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that part of that street is gonna be part of this new shopping mall.
Right, and that's great. I'm excited, and I want to be at the groundbreaking. So let me ask you this: Are you going to introduce another bill to temporary barricade the street? Because this is a vacation. This doesn't say anything about barricading the street.
Well, it's already blocked off.
Oh, okay.
It's already blocked off. Now we wanna vacate it so that when
Oh.
they build the shopping mall in there, or they move the
Okay.
barriers and put shopping mall in there.
Okay, well now it makes sense because you said this was vacating and blocking it, well, it was blocking it off, but it's
It's
really
been blocked
vacating.
off.
And then who is Private Freeman?
Who? Well, he demoted me.
You were a sergeant before that, now you're a private.
Alderman Private Freeman Bosley.
captain, now you president.
I was wondering, it's like, what's happening?
Okay, yeah, let's make sure we correct that.
I gotta.
I got a circle too. See, I have a circle, so that just means you have a problem.
Yeah, Frank.
I know you just had a fire up there with 360 too, didn't you? And that-
Fire upstairs over 360,
Yeah.
but it was the living quarters up there,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
had nothing to do with 360, the automobile repair shop underneath there. But they've cut all of the electric off at the pole for the entire building.
Oh, okay.
So that's the problem.
Okay, second question. That Snooks, did anybody coming in that Snooks on Katsu and Grand?
Yeah.
You got somebody coming?
They talking about it.
Okay. I
I
heard.
wouldn't tell you who they are yet.
I may have an idea.
Me
I
too.
talked to them too. I don't know if it's the same vendor, but because they were interested in going over there, and I told them to
come
call
and
you.
talk to me, whoever comes up with the
Okay.
best deal and wanting the less money.
Yes, sir.
You follow me?
Okay.
That's where we're going.
Okay.
You
That's all
gotta
I.
have the best deal.
Right. Well, you need a store over there. And I know they're gonna miss that pharmacy.
Oh,
That's
no,
gonna
we
hurt.
really, no, we miss all of it over
Yeah.
there because after
Snooks
all,
ought to be ashamed of themselves.
those people who came there and got just
I tried to
aspirin.
tell, but I
Well,
tried
Well,
to
the
tell.
building
put
needs
another
work too,
name
though.
on
The
it.
guy that owns the building needs to do a better job in maintaining that building.
Look,
That's
we
what
gave
it's
Snooks
about.
$4 million at my deal. They should have put some of that $4 million down there.
Yeah.
They double crossed his son.
Well,
Okay.
don't y'all remember, I think we put almost $750,000 into that.
I remember when you redid it. They ought to be
That's
ashamed of
10 years
themselves.
ago. And when the tax abatement ran out.
They ran
you
out.
follow me? They ran out.
That's why I don't like to give all that incentive to everybody.
Yeah.
They have no
But at least we
loyalty to
had
the
them for
city.
10 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And I didn't have to go over on Lindell and Sarah to get me a bottle of aspirin.
Right.
You can come down to Union and Natural Bridge.
You can do that?
Well, one was about close to that. Well, I come down there too.
Yeah.
Yes, on the fourth.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I've asked you and talked to several of the committee members here about the 1400 block of Sarah at Martin Luther King. Actually, it's the 4100 block of Martin Luther King. I was riding down the street and looked to my right, headed downtown, and the street had been barricaded off with those ugly, whatever they call them, barricades from the short part of Sarah. Now, I have a $3 to $4 million project that's coming in with the Foster Funeral Home that's coming in that area, and that's one of the reasons why we chose that. And then you have the Ville Monument right there at Martin Luther King and Sarah, and that just really takes away from the decor and then the beautiful, how beautiful that monument is. But it was done without my knowledge. No one contacted me, no one gave me a reason why they blocked it off. I mean, we had a little traffic problem with the lights blinking, they put up some stop signs, that was fair enough. But when I come and found out that the street was blocked off, and then I received email, I've been
I'm
requesting.
gonna ask for a point of order and just to come back, cause we're on Board Bill 87. Can we pass that one out and come to?
Yeah,
back?
go ahead.
Cause we have this on
Okay.
the table right
This is
now.
on the table.
You're right.
All right.
So I move to pass Board Bill 87 on the
Second.
do pass recommendation.
Previous rule.
Okay, go on.
Okay. So anyway, I received this email from asking and requesting that someone give me a reason as to why they blocked the street off, but I can't get a simple answer as to why they blocked it off. And I noticed that you're talking about vacating and blocking, you put it in a board bill. So what's the difference in Sarah and the rest of the city? How can they just come and block off the street like that?
The only difference is that you're over there, Sam, and they mistreated you. But if you will do, why don't we do a resolution and have the street department to come in here, because if they do it on your street, they will do it someplace else.
Okay, all right.
If you do a resolution, we'll call them in here next week and have them explain how it is that they treated your street that way, and they cannot and have not done that anywhere else.
He can also do, I told him this, just do the reverse of what you're doing to close. Just pass an ordinance permanently opening that spot and prohibiting the street director from closing it. And then that will be a law, okay? So if he can't explain it, you just do the reverse of what you're doing right now, and that ends it.
Well, let's call them in here first.
Okay.
And find out what it is. There may be a spot underneath there, Sam, that's ready to cave in, and we don't know it yet.
Oh,
Then they should have told him that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
All of them. We have to have
Never
a
heard.
petition for street blockage, and I usually do one for a one-way, but we have to have one for a stop sign too. You mentioned that earlier. I just wanna make sure that I got it right.
Well, are the residents on that block?
Sometimes there may be one resident that may request it and not necessarily everyone else. I mean, if it
Not
makes sense, sometimes
necessarily.
I
You
do,
have
but
to
I'm just
have-
asking what you're requiring.
Well, I'm requiring if there are no residents on that block, then what you need to do is have the street department make you an ordinance, and we'll hear it here, cause whatever we do is public, and if don't nobody show up complaining about it, we go on and pass it.
No, I understand that. It's just that when Arnowitz had his stop sign, you told him that he needed a petition. So I'm just trying to make sure that
Well,
we
yeah,
need
the
a petition
reason
for a
why I
stop sign.
told him he needed a petition is because there are people that live on that, and this way, I get away from Elliot Davis sticking his microphone in my face. So, I have done what I wanted to do instead of looking at city ordinances.
I just wanna make sure.
Are we adjourned?
Yeah.
Are we adjourned yet?
Yes, meet the adjourned.